Yes, you are. On tonight, amen, I'm reminded even of when I first got married to the love of my life. Amen. We went and got a joint checking account together in our names, and we were just happy-go-lucky. Amen. And so there was a point in time in our life where the funds, amen, was seeming like they was going out quicker than they was coming in. And so, of course, as you know, with a checking account, amen, there comes written checks. And I don't know about y'all, but there was plenty of times where we had to write checks when we didn't have the money for the checks.
I know that's a...
On tonight, have you ever paid a bill or given a check that was known as a post-dated check? That basically means that you wrote a check and dated it for some time in the future, and it was supposed to be understood that the check is not to be cashed until that particular time. For in essence, a post-dated check implies that you have an assurance that on a future date, you can take the check to the bank and the bank will honor your request. You have an assurance in your hand for the future date. You can cash that check on the established date. I may not have the money right now, but I will have it on that date. On a future agreed upon date, the deal is closed. We find there are some times in our lives where money may be short. We need to get some things done, but the money is acting a little funny. We need to pay bills, but there is more month than it is money. We find ourselves facing hurdles and circumstances that cause our finances to be short, but we still need to take care of business. We find there are some burdens of life that we are trying to bear that brings us to the point where we write a post-dated check. Stick with me, I'm going somewhere in just a moment. As we consider the text on tonight, we find the Israelites in this same position. We find or have found ourselves at this point in some time in our life. They were standing on the edge of the promised land. Finally, after their years of bondage, finally, after facing the Red Sea, finally, after wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, and after losing their dynamic leader, Moses. Generations after the promise had been spoken to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After their period of trial, tribulation, travail, now they are standing with the promised land in their vision. But there is a catch here, a bit of a snag in the process. You see, even though they have caught a glimpse of the promised land, in spite of the fact that their place of victory was just around the corner, they were yet still unable to touch it. We all know that the Israelites were faced with. We have faced the same issues in our lives as well, which is the issue of a wall. A wall that is separating them from the fulfillment of their promise. A wall that is hindering them from moving from where they are right now to the place where God had called for them to be. We know that God had promised us, but there was a wall in front of us. We know that there are blessings for us, but right now there seems to be a wall in front of us. We literally can see our blessing, but it's behind the wall. We know that God promised our children would be blessed, but there seems to be a wall. We know God said that our marriages would improve, but for some odd reason there seems to be a wall. For Joshua and the children of Israel were on a conquest, amen, to gain the promised land. And a land promised to them, and in order for them to get there, they had to overcome and conquer the obstacles that were in their way. For I wonder, saints, how many of us have found ourselves in those situations? At every turn, it seems that we're facing obstacle after obstacle. We recognize that God has spoken his promise over us, but yet we find ourselves faced with obstacles. We find ourselves facing something, a gap that is needed to be bridged, some growth that needs to take place. a stronghold that needs to be broken, a wall that needs to be removed that keeps us from receiving what God has ordained place of victory on the other side. But I got a question for you on tonight. How do we remove the walls? How do we overcome the obstacles? How do we position ourselves to receive all that God desires for us to have and for us to be? For the Bible lets us know in verse number 2 that the Lord said unto Joshua, see, I have given into thine hand Jericho. The word see is an interesting word, which brings me to the first point on tonight. And that point is we must develop a spiritual eye. Understanding that when God begins this conversation with Joshua, God wants him to see this situation with his spiritual eyes. Isn't that what faith is all about? That's why Hebrews 11:6 lets us know, but without faith, it is impossible to please God. He is not asking him to see the situation through their physical eyes. He's not asking them to evaluate the situation based on what he can touch or what is tangible. He's not even asking them to evaluate if it's based on what seems to be reasonable. But he's telling Joshua to look with his spiritual eye. It is through the spiritual eyes that even while we are in the crumble of pressure, even when it looks like all hope has been lost, that we can look to the hills from which cometh our help. For our help cometh from the Lord. So Joshua stands overlooking the city of Jericho. For Jericho, the city that he and Caleb, along with the 10 other spies, had looked upon 40 years previously. The same Jericho that the children of Israel had decided they would be unable to conquer. The same Jericho which had 2 walls that encompassed the city. If you allow me to paraphrase for just a moment, what God was saying is, look here, Joshua, I have given the Hebrews a post-dated check, but it is the time for you to take it to the bank. It's time to make good on the promise that I made. But God was asking Joshua just to have some faith. He was saying to Joshua that I have spoken a promise to the people of Israel. And in this moment, I'm about to make good on the word that I've given you. Here is what I've learned about a post-dated check. The date on the check may have finally arrived, but it's still of no value until you take it down to the bank. You have to do something with it. That brings me to my next point. You got to be willing to put some action with your faith. Tell your neighbor, learn how to work your faith. Yeah. Thank you, Holy Ghost. I feel you coming. Now when you look at the scripture, one would suspect that when God gives an order just like that, in order to simply march around the world day after day, there would be some objections that somebody would balk at the command. But the interesting thing here is that the Israelites were not afraid to trust God to do a new thing. I got a question tonight. How many of you are afraid to let God do a new thing in your life? Yet many of us, when God starts talking, when God starts trying to do a new thing, we get the case of the stiff-neck. We get the case of the leg feet because we refuse to move forward on the promises situation. The same God that was able to bring order out of chaos. The same God that was able to speak to the Red Sea and open it up so that the Israelites could cross over on dry land. The same God that loves us so much that he knows the number of hairs on our heads. The same God that loved us so much that he sent his only begotten Son to die for you and I. The same God the same God that was able to raise Jesus from the dead on the third day with all power in his hand, that somehow that same God is suddenly able to perform the miraculous with the impossible. Most of the time we want God to move in our life and to come to our rescue. We understand that there are some situations in our lives that are bigger than we are. We wait for God to move and to deliver, and then come to church and want to testify and fall out in the middle of the flow. But we must learn how to praise God in advance. Don't wait till the battle is over, but shout right now. Give God praise right now. We got to give our God a post-dated praise in order to bring down the walls that keep us from our promise, the walls of discouragement, the walls of disobedience, the walls of stress, the walls of financial, the walls. Tell your neighbor, tonight is your night to give God a pulsating praise, to watch your walls come down. Yes, Lord. The Israelites were doing as God commanded, and were going around the wall the seventh time on the seventh day as God commanded. On the seventh time, the priest let out a blast on the trumpets. Now let me take a moment to let you know about the trumpets. There's an interesting thing about trumpets. The trumpets that these priests were sounding were not trumpets to announce battle. These trumpets were the same trumpets that they used to worship and give God glory. These trumpets were the same trumpets used to signify that the presence of the Lord was in the place. These trumpets were used for jubilee. These trumpets were used for praise. Do me a favor. Touch three people. Let them know it's time for your wall to come now. Are you ready to be delivered? Are you ready to be set free? Are you ready for victory? Are you ready for your promise? Are you ready? About to close, but let me finish this. And the shouts of the praise went up, and the walls fell down. I don't know
is your night. Tonight is your hour to get what you need from the Lord. I'm reminded of the old school that used to sing, what you need, God's got it. What you need, God's got it. If it's joy, God's got it. If it's peace, God's got it. If it's love, God's got it. Tell your neighbor, God's got it. Yeah, you've been making progress by living in the Spirit. You've been making progress by praying in the Spirit. You've been believing the Word of God and advancing in spiritual victory. But now it seems that you come against the wall. Yeah, you may feel that you're up against a barrier. Something that's hindering you, an obstacle that's in your way, preventing you from progress. As a matter of fact, the conditions say you're limited, but it's time to send God a post-dated praise. Until the walls come down, the walls of unbelief, the walls of fear, the walls that's hindering you from the promise. Your deliverance is here tonight. Give God the best post-dated praise you can give him. I was told when praises go up, the blessings come down. But not only does the blessings come down, but the blesser comes down and sees about your need. Whatever you need, God's got it. God's got it. God's got it. Superintendent. I was told by you about a year and a half ago that my praise will speed up the process. Do I got anybody? Do I got somebody that got a praise on the inside? Give God the best praise you can give him. Blessings.